Good morning, Atlanta. We had some technical issues, and that's absolutely fine. We are here now. We're going to continue this conversation about the superintendent search. My name is Waukesha Howe. I am here with my lovely co-host, Miss Sherelle, and we was just talking about, you know, the upcoming candidate races. So we have people who are running for school board here in Atlanta. That would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So please go check them out. We did do a conversation with them. So you can go and listen to those conversations here on YouTube. You like it, you can subscribe. It's up to you. But we want you to be informed on what's going on in our city. We have a race. And now we have a superintendent search. I also, up under the last conversation, attached the timeline. APS have a timeline. And so I have attached the timeline of when how they're going to go about engaging the community, how they're going to look at the candidates and do their research or background checks and so forth. So that is online. You can go check that out. Also, I'm gonna give you this before we get into this conversation. You have a chance to go see what the board is doing. They have an upcoming policy review committee that is, let's see, the 19th, and that's going to be from 9 to 10:30. There's a board development that starts at 11 or 10:45, I should say. And they have the budget meeting that's coming up around 12:30. So I just want to drop those little nuggets where you can actually go look at what our current candidates and school board members are doing as we continue to talk about this conversation, because we know these committees matter. And if you get a chance, go watch them on Facebook. All of this stuff is live streamed on Facebook, and you can go back and hit replay and just watch it. So back to the conversation, we were talking about, what we've seen, what we would like. Ms. Sherelle, I'm going to turn it back over to you to kind of kick us off and continue where you left off.
Well, since we started over, we're going to start over. And I agree with Ms. Howell. We appreciate the community's involvement. But certainly when you have interruptions as such as the one we had previously, which is why we're starting back over. We welcome all feedback. However, you must be one that wants to be engaged appropriately. So what we're here to do today, so I'm going to say welcome the city of Atlanta, the communities, the surrounding communities. And if you're listening live and looking back at the recording, we want to say thank you for joining us, and thank you for being willing to at least be informed and to start the conversation with your community and your school leaders, the people that's your next door neighbors. This is as relates to a superintendent search for the city of the Atlanta Public School System, but it's also we're addressing also the candidates for the Atlanta Board of Education. And as Ms. Howell said, there are a number of seats that are up this year, and they have them stagnant as to so that the entire board is not new and not able to carry on business from the previous administration. So we're going to say thank you. And so we're asking you to go back and look at the recordings because we do have candidates that is in the race and have spoken about their intentions for the board, for the school, for the children that they're serving. But more importantly, we want you to look at it based on the fact that they will be the ones who will be identifying the next superintendent for the city of Atlanta Public Schools. That's going to be important because you're going to need a superintendent that has the ability to be able to communicate with the public, with the community stakeholders, partners, donors, parents, students, teachers. Anybody and everybody has something to do with the educating children. That superintendent needs to have the ability to do so. So we're not looking for a superintendent that comes with their own agenda and trying to make a name. We've had that. We're looking for a superintendent who's going to make a name for the children. We want the children's name to be in light. And the only way we're going to do that is to educate them appropriately. We can't educate them with the agenda of adults who are having spats with each other and not handling the business of the students so they can receive an appropriate education. Our state, the state of Georgia, has said that students have the opportunity to a free education in our state, should they attend the institutions in the state of Georgia. But in order to do so, and in order for that particular child, should they select to go to college, we want them to be educated enough and feel supported enough that they can make choices and that they will have choices. So to have a choice to go to college, but not being literate enough to not only to sign up for college, but to participate, to graduate with the intended goal in mind. So you have to have a superintendent who's going to not only hold the principals accountable, holding teachers accountable, but also, sticking to the policies, which is where the board comes in. You got to pick board members who are not going to have hidden agendas and being clandestine about their moves and their relationship with inner city and inner working partners. You want board members who are going to strictly support education. It is highly important. If you go back and look at the numbers as it relates to the graduation rate of this year, what you'll see is that you'll see an increase. But if you do a deeper dive, you'll see that the increase was minuscule compared to the numbers. And if you look at the numbers, the way they weighted the graduation rate, the criterion was changed as to include or exclude certain groups or certain ones. And so with that being said, it's going to appear that the increase we had agreed, and we're not knocking any increase. Let me just put that out there. We want to see children do well, but we want to see all children doing well. Because if you're doing well, you're gonna curtail homelessness. You're gonna curtail teenage pregnancies. You're gonna curtail drug use. You're gonna curtail crime. You're gonna curtail incarceration. All those things play a part in life, and we don't know which way we're gonna go in life. However, if we have the opportunities to at least be intentional about the education of our children, that's going to be beneficial to every family, and they'll be supported economically. They'll be enriched. Every family can support their own family and then be a bridge to the community. But you can't do that if you're not educated appropriately. And we can't do that if we don't have board members who are going to be able to create policies and implement policies with fidelity and honesty and truth as relates to the schools that they're willing to serve. Now, here's the thing, what a lot of people don't talk about. The Atlanta Public Schools entered into a contract with the state of Georgia that says that I have the ability to educate students in my district, and that I am willing and I have appropriate services and the means to do so. But what we've seen, if you look at the class of 2022, the graduation rates were the highest, but they received the least amount of support during the pandemic. But now, if you take that a little bit further, you'll find out that those students who graduated are struggling. They're having challenges. Not all, but some, and more than a little. And what we're seeing is that people are struggling. You're already dealing with mental or emotional issues and trauma from the pandemic, but from home life just as well. So I'm saying all this because everything that we're talking about today as relates to the superintendent search plays a part in how well a child feels about themselves and the sustainability of that child, creating a life for that child, being successful in life. If the board members who are coming up for the race, if you select the right board member who has the knowledge and a backbone, so we don't want just 5 members to vote. Everybody that sits on that board should be for children. And if you're not for children, you need to get off the board, because that's what it's about. I get politics, but it's not about politics when it comes to a child being educated. It's just not. And if the superintendent works for the board works for the people, your tax dollars pay for those salaries. So we have got to be intentional, city, community. I love you, but we have got to be intentional about the children, about these students. We need to be educating them appropriately so that they can come out and support the community and the state. So get involved. Early election is October 6th. Now I'm saying October 6th, it's October 16th, is it? And then November, and then the election date is going to be November 7th. And from what we understand, that Fulton County and the Atlanta Public Schools is going to be on the ballot. We're asking you to please look at your voting precincts so that you'll go to the appropriate one. But if you're early voting, there is a site that you can go to that shows you the early voting polls. Please do so. Select the candidate that you feel will speak for you and will represent you, because that's what's going to be needed in getting this next superintendent. We've had 8 years. They got a 5-year plan as relates to goals and guardrail. We don't need another 5 years. We need people to work. And when you find that something is not going right, you need to change it. Not wait 5 years down the line, a year down the line, and see if it's going to work. Children are being graduated out without literacy. You think they have 5 years to wait? We don't. The children don't. The parents don't. The community doesn't. The state does not. The economic conditions of some of the children in the Atlanta Public Schools is now. You need to support that now. Educating is the way. And the only way we can educate it, we get the right people in place. And so you're going to need a superintendent that's going to be able to do the job. And if not, the board members who pick that superintendent, they need to go.
So with that, I totally agree. We don't have another 5 years. And so I was sitting here just going back, looking over some data. And any person who is applying need to know this data. Now, this is from GDOT. And according to them, the enrollment here in Atlanta is 54,559 students. That's a total of 87 schools. We have 81% Title I school. So that say a lot right there by itself. And I had some conversation online going back and forth about what is, these Black and brown children have been falling behind for a long time. But you look at your board. We had a Black superintendent. We had a Black board chair. We had a Black vice chair. We have Black teachers. We have Black principals. So you can do that math. I ain't going to say no more. You can do that math. Now, with that being said, the population, 73.6% Black, Hispanic, 7.5%, multi-race, 2.8%, white, 14.8%, economically disadvantaged, 73.2%. This is in Atlanta. This is Atlanta. Student with disability, 12.7%. Now, let me give y'all a little nugget. When I learned about this website in Georgia, keeping this data, I went to go look and I was like, oh my God, all these numbers and stuff on here. What is this stuff? One thing is important to pay attention to is the content mastery. When we just heard about the graduation rate, it went up, right? But go and look at what the kids have, what they kept. That's how they explained it to me in layman's terms. What have the kids maintained? What have they learned, in school? And so let me give you this other nugget. Let me go to high school first. We have 14,000 high school students throughout the city of Atlanta. And so content mastery for literacy, American literacy alone, 54.79%. Algebra. I have two sons that went to college. I can tell you, they told me, Mama, that this college math is different. Content mastery, 34.37. This is what they're keeping now. This is what they're holding on to, high school students, as they go out. So when you heard the graduation rate, understand 2022, these are their numbers, what they held on to going out. I'll give you two more. Biology, 48%. US history, 62%. Now, this is what's kind of tricky for me, and it's just my opinion. If you're having issues in literacy, if you can barely read, how can you master anything else? How can you understand the math problems? How can you understand US history? How can you understand algebra? Because we know the words and numbers in now and the alphabets. How can you understand that with this? So in your own free time, just go pick your school and look at those numbers, because you're the ones who's going to be voting for another board member to select a superintendent. So just go look at those numbers and feel free to reach out to them. I gave you dates of upcoming information about the different committees. Go and reach out to them and ask them the questions. And I'm pretty sure if they are who they say they are, they have no problem with saying, hey, listen, this is what it is. And so with that, we just spent the last 3 years millions of dollars. And the graduation rate, it increased, but you took some things out to make it look good. Is that fair? Is that fair to the babies who are going out into the world and who have to be productive citizens? I'm so glad I'm doing this. I'm finna give you a real story. So yesterday I was in a restaurant and I heard this young lady talking, and I know she's younger than my older kids, and I watch a lot of stuff. And so her total came up. I was watching. She placed her order. She said what she want. Her total came up. Her total was about $13. She gave the cashier about $17. Okay. This is a young lady, because she was saying she worked in a restaurant right now. She works in another establishment, and she gave her the wrong amount. So what I can say, she got to be over 16, to be working in these jobs. Hopefully, people follow the law. And probably over 18, right? And so what does that say about our city? And I watched the cashier, because that's me. And I watched how she gave her the other money back. But that spoke volumes to me, because let's say she graduated, and this is real life. I cannot make this up. I saw this with my own eyes, and my husband was like, hey, move out the way. No, I want to see this for myself, because see, it's one thing when we're talking about it, but when you see it in real life, that's a whole nother story. That baby gave her extra money, and if that cashier wasn't who she was, she would have kept it. She could have kept it, but she gave her the few dollars back because she gave her more than her total. But she didn't. So can you imagine how our babies who are graduating and don't have what they need, how they're getting cheated in life? Now there was somebody in the cashier was way older, right? And so I know she have that fairness in her to where I'm not gonna rob you. I'm not gonna take from you. She nicely counted the money and gave her the extra money back. But that hurted me bad. That hurted me really bad. Because how many of us, and I do this with my kids sometimes, how many of us get to go to the store and let our children, high school, elementary, middle school, interact, pay for things, make a list, measure some food? How many of us, get to do that? Because we need to see this. Because I was so taken away, and I was gonna say something about this, but this is the moment right here for it. That hurted me bad as a mama. That I was like, you gave her too much, but the cashier said it, and I was like, okay, thank you. She was, because I was watching both of them count. I watched her count her money, gave it to her, and I watched the cashier count it and gave that extra money back. And she gave her change, because she gave her $15 three fives, and then she gave her about two more extra dollars. I don't know what kind of math that is. It could be new math. I seen it. It's different. But she did recognize that she did give her too much and she gave her back. But what did that say about our babies? And that young lady looked just like me. The cashier looked just like me. So what does that say about our babies? When it comes time to pick a superintendent, I don't want nobody that's going to be standing taking pictures. I don't want nobody who is interested in hiring her friends because they belong to these organizations or they look like them. I just said that we have a black, and I go further. We got a black mayor, we got black city council reps, we got black school board reps, vice chair and chair, I'll say it again. And we just had a black superintendent. We have to call these things to question ourselves, because if not, then who will? They're standing in front of our babies. You just heard what I said that number was for the disadvantaged. 73%. 73. Matter of fact, I think I saw 73.3, and the number of black kids is 73.6. This is Atlanta, and we know what we are. So with that being said, I truly hope this search firm, and hello, I have no problem with holding them accountable, and I hope they see this video, that they truly engage. They watch this video. They have conversations, real authentic conversations with the people in the community about what we need and what we want. I saw that timeline. It's on the Board of Education website. Y'all can go check it out yourself. It's subject to change. I'll say that. I saw that at the bottom when I read it about it, said it could change. So, you got to put something out there. But we got to start holding these people accountable, period. We have to start holding them accountable for what our children have and don't have. And that's all, because I want to say this too. I'm going to say this because it got to be said. We're not the only ones that's struggling. Black children are not the only ones that's struggling. Hispanic children are not the only ones that's struggling. There are some white kids that are struggling too. We can call it, this is a safe space. We can call it what it is. There are some that's struggling. And like you just heard, Atlanta Public School went into agreement with this state and said, hey, we have the tools to educate all of these kids, all 54 of these kids. And I think it's time that that get done. I appreciate the fact that a lot more of us in the city of Atlanta is talking, because we have been divided by sides, north, south, east, west. And so a lot of us is having conversation and we're holding space to where we see, what? You dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with. It ain't no different over there. And I had a conversation, and I made it clear, because I have a big family and we're all over. I don't want to see no resources stripped from the Midtown in the North Atlanta cluster or Jackson. I don't. I want our board to hire the best person. And let me say this for the record, because y'all need to hear this. If you don't have the best candidates in front of you, before you dangle anyone in our face, start it over. Start it over. Do not come to us and be like, this the best we got. Start it over. Start it over. We holding y'all feet to the fire this time, because we had a pandemic and a superintendent that wasted millions in about 3 years. And I can tell you right now, the children in Atlanta cannot afford another 3 years. We can't. And so with that being said, we're going to have to hold to the fire.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Howard, I agree with you. We wasted time and money. So yes. You're absolutely correct. And to go back, I was looking and said the Department of Education is saying Tuesday that 84.4% of the seniors graduated on time this spring. Now, when y'all look at the numbers, we talk about numbers, because the person that you put in there is going to have to know these numbers.
It's right.
Now, they said it was slightly up from last year. Now, I went to school, but I'm just saying, 84.4 rise from 84.1 is actually a 0.3% increase from last year. Okay, now even if you don't do that dive, we know that the number in 2022 had an increase, but how authentic was the increase? Because we know that our babies, even though some of them had internet challenges and many other challenges, they had resources available to them that afforded them the opportunity to get answers and gain answers. And so how authentic was the grades? So what we're saying to you is not putting the blame on our children, because children are creative and they should be, because that's what we want. We want children to be educated enough that they can be competitive. However, in order to be competitive, you have to be educated appropriately. And it starts back with the superintendent, who go back to the board, because the board is the person that who actually hires the superintendent. But we got to have a board who can identify what a good superintendent looks like. And as Ms. Howard said, we got a firm, the same firm that presented, let me be clear, that presented the last superintendent is the same board, the same firm we have in place now. And since we didn't get a choice in that matter, here's what you do. When they bring you a candidate that you know doesn't fit the bill, doesn't pass the smell test, hit reset. But before you can hit reset, I want to tell you, those seats that are coming up for election, put the right folks in there so that those people can represent you without you having to get out here and stomp, scream, and holler, because your child is in a situation that they can't get out of based on the fact they haven't been educated appropriately. That's the bad part. But we're not working with the bad, we're working with the good. Here comes talk, having a conversation about these candidates and having a conversation about these superintendents, which you're entitled to do because your tax dollars are at work. Don't sit by and continue to allow. I don't care what people tell you. Go look for yourself. Don't listen to me and Ms. Howell. Go look for yourself. We're telling you to go look. We want you to search. We want you to have a deeper dive. We want you to get an understanding. But more importantly, we want you to have the conversation so it can be said that, wait a minute, we're not just sitting back letting this roll anymore. We've done that. I'm telling you. The situation that Ms. Howell talked about that young lady, I've seen it. And anybody who's honest said they've seen it. But the city is too great to produce children that can't support the city. And more importantly, that they can't support themselves and support their families. And it's not just, it is not, y'all, I'm telling you, she's right. It's not just, black and brown. See, we need to stop doing that color thing and get on the education thing, because statewide, 94% of the Asian and Pacific Island students graduated on time. Okay? As did 87.1% of white students, 82.5% of multiracial students, 83.7% of Black students, and 77.6% of Hispanic students. So we're talking about students. We're talking about education. Georgia historically has had one of the narrowest gaps between Black and white graduate students. We got that. But it don't mean that it has to stay the same. There is a change coming. And I'm telling you, these younger students, the younger generation, I welcome you to get involved in civics, which is something we don't talk about in school no more. Okay? Get involved in your community. Your voice matters. Your vote matters. Your vote is your voice. When you speak with your voice and your vote, you matter. You represent yourself and your community. Stop letting people just hand you anything and everything. If they come before you, if you put yourself out there, you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to be judged. Just like me and Ms. Howell. I know you're going to go back and look at this recording, and you're going to talk about us. You know what? We welcome that too. And where we're not refined, guess what? We're going to be okay with that as well. But what we want to do is we're putting ourselves out there so we can say that the conversation needs to be had. And if you don't like the fact that we're having a conversation, then something's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with us. We want the community to start having the conversation because we're putting children out there who cannot read. If you can say that children are not reading at the third grade level, on level, a third grader, really? The common documents are written on a fifth grade level, with fifth grade level in mind. We go all the way to 12th grade. Some of us go all the way to college, right? We go to masters and then doctors. What level are you really, really retaining? But here's the issue. We can do something about it now. All we got to do is start elect a board that's going to represent you. If you want your child educated, and I know some of us have able to put our children in private school, I'm glad with that. But even at that, your tax dollars are still paying for public education. And so those same students that they graduate out is in the same community as you. Require and insist that the school system produce and put out what they said they were going to do. If you said you were going to educate students in the city of Atlanta, if that's what your contract is, live up to it. Stop messing with the numbers so those numbers can show that you're doing some work. Actually put the work in. It can happen. We got a $1.7 billion budget. $1.7 billion. And they're saying it is spending $23,000 each plus on students. You can educate people. Come on now. What we doing besides spending money?
Miss Sharia, I want to say this, and I see a hand. We have Hooked on Funnies. I just went and looked it up. Is like $20, $30. And that's, for certain levels. You can go buy it, the app. And I seen something interesting. I seen that schools have access to this. So we can buy the programs that can help. And I know firsthand that we have a plethora of licenses for programs that our babies don't even have access to.
Right. You got the resources, but you're not using them effectively. Now, I don't know if it's because you don't know how to use them, or you don't really know what they did, and you just took it on yourself to buy them because people said to buy them. But here's the deal. You're talking about Hooked on Funnies. They're talking about Orton Gillingham. They're talking about Linda Mubel, which is a reading program as well. But here's the thing. If you don't identify children appropriately, then how can you educate them? We got to stop looking at children as being the issue when we're the adults. Where are the adults in the room? Huh? So let's look at the adults. Because your child is not driving themselves to school. They're looking at mama and daddy to drive them to school, to walk them to school. They're not doing homework by themselves. They're looking for mama and daddy to do that. The first word that a baby hears is not when it comes out. It's while the child is still in the womb. So teaching starts early, but we have to continue that. We have to continue that. But in order for a child to be great, you have to have that expectation of being great. You got to have a desire to be great. You want them to be great. So I look at mine, even with disabilities. I said, what's your ability? I got the this. But what's the ability? There's two parts of disability. And so I want to know, what's your ability? We're going to do what we can do well. We're not going to worry about what we can't do. We're going to worry about what we can do well. We understand that there are some challenges. But again, I'm going to say early voting is the key. Early voting starts October 16th. Voting in the city of Atlanta, Fulton County is going to be November the 7th. These people from District 1, District 3, District 5, 7, 9 at large, they're going to be on the ballot. If you don't know the candidates, get the opportunity to go and research them and find out. There are plenty of websites that you can go and you can get news. I'm telling you, it is up to us. In fact, I'm looking at the city council has a website. You can go and find out about the candidates and about their personal financial disclosure statement and campaign laws and guidelines.
Please follow them.
Yes, you can follow. You can find out about what a board member is supposed to do. The board member is responsible for the superintendent, not the other way around. And if you got a board member that's afraid to talk, you got a board member that's not going to represent you. Put somebody on the board that's going to represent your voice. The time is now, the city of Atlanta. We waited years. Now, we're just not talking about now. If you go back, the city of Atlanta public school, the Atlanta public school system has been in place for a long time. Education has been in place for a long time. There is a requirement by law for your child to be educated. It can be homeschool, it can be private school, it can be public school, but the child must be educated. And since there's a requirement by law to get them to do so, you need to make sure as a parent, I don't care whether it's mom, daddy, grandmama, granddaddy, auntie, uncle, it doesn't really matter, it can be cousin then. What you want to do is represent. Speak up. Because if you don't say anything, you'll never get anything. And if you keep letting them give you what they've been giving you, you're going to get another what? 4 years of what? Nothingness. Well, they won't call it nothingness, they call it non-production. But nonetheless, it's ineffective. And so now is the time city of Atlanta go out and vote. Vote, vote, vote. That's what I keep saying. Vote. Vote the right people in. The superintendent needs to be one that represents education, not representing friendship.
Thank you so much for that. I seen a hand, but I see it's down. Please let me know if you wanted to ask. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, ladies, for having this get together this morning. I have a question for you. It seems as if, trust, as a mom of 3 kids, one in elementary, middle, and high school, and APS schools for the last 10 years, it seems as if trust and respect with families, teachers, students has been lost. And we're in a rebuilding phase, or we have an opportunity to rebuild trust and respect here. And many of us see momentum in that. How do you guys envision rebuilding trust versus what has happened for years, which is people tend to point fingers and distract and try to tear us apart across the city rather than address issues at hand? How do you envision rebuilding that trust process in the superintendent search?
Well, thank you for saying that, Dion, and asking that question, because that's really important to me. And I'll let Ms. Howell deal with the superintendent search part, but I will tell you this right here. What you want to see is the board stop bringing things to the community after they've made a decision and then asking you to speak on it after the decision has been made. You have got to include the community in the process, not in after the process. After the aftermath is too late. And so in order to build trust with people, first you gotta respect people. You gotta want to represent people, all people, not just some people, because when people have a tendency when they start picking sides, they leave out other sides. And so with me, my problem with the current board is that you bring things back to the community after you made a decision. So anytime we've heard anything from APS have already made decisions. I said this to one of the candidates. The process does not need to be the board decides, the board get their representative, they get the facts, and then they make a decision on whatever the facts are. Then they bring back the solution back to the public. That is not what needs to happen, because that's what's bred distrust. And then they pitted sides against each other. And you would think it would be as relates to race, but it's more in sides of towns, parts of town, schools. And and trying to say that one has more than the other and better than the other. All of our children are suffering. All of them. And when they let go one into the community, and that one hasn't been supported like they should, it's going to take a toll. It's going to cost the community. It's costing us one way or the other. So I know I'm going off on a tandem, but I want to know that's going to be my first thing, is holding the board accountable for what they're doing. They need to engage parents, in all their meetings and in all their processes. There should be a parent on the board. Of every board you have, there should be a parent voice there. And there should be also, if you have especially communities, there should be a person there representing that community. If you don't have that voice there, then how are you going to bounce anything off of the situation? You're not going to be able to identify the solution appropriately because you don't have the people there at the table. So I'll let Ms. Howell talk about the superintendent search.
So I would say, I think there are already some concerns, and I think that we already starting to see some similarities. The trust part is key, and I think with rebuilding trust, what they're gonna have to see from us is that we stand together, and that we want the same thing. We want to see a fair process, and we want the best candidate to bring the proper outcome for our communities. And so we have to home in on the board. Y'all know my two favorite people, Travis and Keisha. I have no problem with reaching out to them and saying, hey, engagement, right? But this part of the engagement is going to be a little different because the search firm is going to be the ones who kind of lead the charge on that. But I would hope and wish that the board, and I know some have had small conversations, but in their community talk, they start having conversation about what it is you want to see instead of bringing us all this loaded information about other things when we have some critical things that needs to be top priority right now. And so for me, we see what a trust lies. We see in our candidates now, especially district wide, we see in their forms what they talk about, what they bring before us, knowing good and well, we know issues that are top priority that we really need to be talking about. So I would just urge people to pay attention to those conversations that we have with our board members each month, in their community talks and stuff, and seeing, what are they saying to us? Are they talking about the things that we really care about, or are they just bringing us some busy work? I'll say that. I see your hand. Go ahead.
I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned, being more engaged the last 3 years, is many of the things that I thought were board responsibility or the board's job was really the APS administration and downtown's job. And I was blaming board members for things that were individuals' jobs downtown, such as selecting curriculum for middle school and security and things along those nature. Now, they can hold the superintendent accountable for those decisions, and they did. But I blamed them for things that were decisions or processes or policies or within the charter that lay within the superintendent's job responsibilities. So with that said, one thing that the board can do, and they have an accountability committee, is make an accountability tool for the superintendent, of which it's very frustrating because if you have no accountability tool, then you can't hold someone accountable. And some people can say, well, we don't have an accountability tool, so we can't hold someone accountable. So that was very frustrating because I was trying to figure out what the board could do in this process, seeing my children and the employees failed on a daily basis. So with that said, I've really been advocating that accountability tool be finalized and completed so that we can move forward. And there are 3 individuals on the accountability committee appointed by the chair. The vice chair is the head of the accountability committee. So I recently asked her, is there a timeline for that to be finalized? Because, 3 going on to year, I think 4 years later, and they did not have, she did not have an answer for me. So that is one thing that I think we should, lean in on. Also, our last superintendent's contract had that every September, she would establish goals and that they would have an accountability meeting in October or some agreed time the following year to discuss that annual review. And it appeared that that was not done. And that lay under the accountability committee again. So many of the things that I thought was their responsibility was not. And the few things that I did, it just seemed like there were certain things that were being blocked to hold people accountable, and was very frustrating. Sorry, that was really long. So what would you guys like?
No, that's fine.
What would
Right.
you like to see when talking about a superintendent search? You know, I said to someone recently, if I was a superintendent applying for a job, I would want to see the accountability tool. I would want to know what are the standards? What are you going to hold me accountable for in the student governance framework? And the student governance framework, when I looked at it, it more or less said the goals and guardrails should be your accountability tool. And if you are not meeting those standards of the goals and guardrails, and your plan is not aggressive enough, then you are not doing your job as superintendent. It was that clear.
Yep.
So with that said, we have the framework. It just seems like certain individuals were not allowing our kids to have a better future. And to your point, the graduation rate is not a reflection of what is happening with our children at all. And I think it's a disservice, and it saddens me to continue to see that we celebrate things when you actually look at the data, and the data does not correspond to that graduation rate. And even if you don't see the data, you have real life experiences like you were explaining, Waikisha, which we just see our kids being failed. And teachers and principals leaving because they know that we're failing kids.
So with that, I'm just gonna say this. I remember your voice, and I remember you last year asking a question about the tool, and I was like, "What tool?" You know, and this was in my district of District 1, actually. And I was like, we got something here. But then we got nothing. We was asking, because I was curious. I was like, what is that? And when I would see board members, I would ask them about that. Or if I'm in contact with them, I would like, hey, what about this measure right here? And to your point, like nothing was being done. So we were moving throughout the year. Allegedly, what I remember from last year was, it's a tool. They're working on it. It's about to be finalized, but I never heard like it's final. And this is what we're going to use to measure our superintendent to see what they were doing. Now, if you look at the news, and she would say that, I got this good feedback, and I thought I was on the right track. But you can look at the data to see whatever you're doing right now is not kicking up dust. It's not moving nothing at all. And we, these last 3 years, we have spent multi-millions of dollars. And so if we have this tool, if it's finalized, to be fair, like, I think it should be finalized now. Where is it? Can the community see it? Can the person who's going to apply for this job see it, so they'll know, like, this is what we're going to hold you to? And another thing that we most definitely need to just hold space really fast on is the fact that some of the things that we yell at our board members about is it falls up under the superintendent and her staff.
Okay, but let's just stop though.
Okay.
Because here we go. We're talking about people not knowing what's who and who's on right and who's on left, or first and second, third. But here's the deal. Again, voting starts October what? 16th, early voting. If you can't make it then, November 7th is your day. What we're saying is people have a perspective that has, for lack of a better term, has trickled over to the board members based on the fact their inactivity or their non-productiveness in doing their job. the Atlanta Board of Education has a responsibility to the community to provide a superintendent who can do the job that has been contracted to the state to do. If you have board members who don't know, and you know, the odd part about all this is that we have attorneys on our board, okay, who went to school a little bit longer than a lot of other people. Now, here's the deal. You know what the law is, you know what the requirements are. If you don't want, you can do the job. You don't want to do the job, because if you wanted to do the job would get done. There is nothing that is too hard for anybody who has the ability to do so. It's only the struggle when you don't have the ability. Now, the board, the members on the board either need to be willing to do their job that they said they were going to do to the public when you elected them. And if you don't have the gumption to do it, get off the board. We shouldn't have to worry about all these other issues, because the board is supposed to take care of the superintendent. In order to hold the superintendent accountable, you got to have goals and guardrails. But listen to what she just said. I don't have a date. Really? How do you call yourself a board?
Yep, I remember these conversations.
See, here's the thing: when you go for a job, they got what they call your job responsibilities and duties, right? So then you get on the job and they say, "Oh, well, instead of sweeping, I want you to carry somebody to the grocery store." Wait a minute, that's not on my job description. So in order for me to know what the job I need to do, right, that needs to be what? Something that's in plain writing that everybody can see, there's no confusion. And so my problem is when we start talking about, you know, well, there's no timeline. Let me tell you something. There's no timeline because it's intentional. You can't hold my feet to the fire if you don't know what time I'm supposed to arrive. Stop allowing people to have time to mess over you. If you got a board, there needs to be policies in place, even for them and even for the superintendent. The superintendent job responsibility should be tied into that. And when you're doing the evaluation, if she's not doing it, she or he, we're not even going to be discriminatory here and not in this platform. If they're not going to do the job that's required in order to make the student to be successful, then the job is not being done. Let's stop with the nonsense. We don't play it around, and we permitted people to do what they want to with you. We're not separating anybody. We're not separating race. We're not separating communities, because all of the students in the city of Atlanta are our students. They're the ones coming out in our community. They're the ones that are making applications with the employers that's in our city, in our county, and in our state. There is a requirement that you educate your child. This is how you start. If you want to stop the distrust, get involved. Get involved, and you tell what you see. Make things be transparent. Not we say transparent, it's more like clandestine. But anyway, your voice, I'm going to say again, is your vote. Your vote is your voice. When you see people are not doing anything, it is irresponsible for somebody to have something in motion and not have a timeline or an expectation of an outcome. Nobody in the world does that. When a mother is carrying a baby, there's a turn. And when it's time, that baby's coming. And if the baby is not coming, then we do what? We reassess and adjust, and we find out what's the problem is so you can address the problem. We can't keep sitting and allowing people to just do what they will with you. It's time is going by. Children are growing up. There's no more time for separation. Galvanize your community, even if they don't have children. They got grandchildren, they got nieces and nephews. We got grandparents raising their grandchildren. They need support. They need to know where to go get their support. They don't have time to wait, and we all know they don't have time to wait. So yes, I get that, you know, things are running over and lines are being blurred, but we are the ones who vote the school board in. Look at their qualification, look at their track record. If they don't have the ability to go in and handle business on day one, they don't need to go in. Those people are going to have to pick your next superintendent. They need to have the ability to be able to identify a person who can handle the needs of the community. And if they don't, let's start that search back over. We already done got that firm who we had the last time. We got that. Now what we don't want is you to bring me some applicants who done got rejected somewhere else. I'm just saying, stop. Bring us some people who really want the job. I don't want you to bring us some people and then go behind the scene and pick somebody else. Had that, done that. If we don't be careful, you're going to end up with the possibility of the state moving in if things start going awry. So we don't have to sit here, community, we don't. You got a voice. You know what's needed. You as an adult, you know how it is to be out here in this world. You know what the requirements are. Look at your children. Look at their individual skills and their talents. Start grooming and molding them so they can have the outcome that you want, not the outcome that's presented to them because they can't do anything else. We got to expect more. We have got to be intentional. Find a board who's going to represent your voice so they can hire the right superintendent so that superintendent can be in place and address the issues in order to turn around our schools, in order to turn around and give us some real numbers of graduation, because a 0.3% for the state of Georgia, that's not for Atlanta Public Schools, 0.3% for state. Now, y'all multiply that or divide that by the number of children we got and find out who really did graduate.
I seen another hand. Dion, go ahead. Okay, maybe she put her hand down. Oh, okay. But I want to lift this up too. You said something really important. We have lawyers on our board. We have people that work for the city on our board. We also have a few parents on our board. We have some people that don't have no children on our board. So we got all kinds of people on this board that give these different perspectives. It's no reason. It's no reason. One thing I can tell you I seen is that it feel like people are bullied. I go to a lot of the meetings. One conversation that will always stick out to me is when a young man spoke and he said to the Black board members, he said, stop telling the white board members that they can't care about the issues that affect Black children, because we need them all to care. We don't need them to just care about their district or their area. We need them all to care about all of the issues that affects our children. And so when he said that, it was mind-blowing, because to think that we have people that saying, hold up, don't get in this business because this not your business. And I'm gonna be real, you can tell that's what the case have been all these years, because even in public spaces, you can tell certain people that was kind of scared and nervous to speak on certain issues. No, when you get elected and you serve on that board, you have the opportunity to speak for all kids in this district. And so you have to know where you stand. And I see, oh, well, let's step back. We don't want to tell the superintendent what to do. If you ain't doing your job, let him know the job is not being done. And we need you to get this right fast. Or we got somebody else, or we'll get somebody else to do it. The other part is that, I said this before, we educated some of the greatest people in this world with a very tiny budget. And I can tell you, there are schools on the west side that may get a little bit more money than the schools on the east side or the north side. So when we talk about money is there. I'm going to say this for Atlanta Public School. We do have a governance board that serves over your independent school, your school. And they make the decision. It's consisted of community members, parents, the principals there, non-voting person, And teachers. I mean, this is the whole community. They make the decision for those millions of dollars that go into these schools. They make the decision for that school. They set the budget for that school. So if you don't have teachers trained in Orton Gillingham, if you don't have ready, you go to your go team, and then you do public comment and let it be known that, listen, hey, we seen some research that say this might be good for our population of students. I go to every go team meeting in the city, and I can tell you they get 0 to maybe 1 in a possible, and sometimes that's me, of comments for the whole entire year. There's people in our community don't even know, and you don't have to be a parent. Teachers, if you're watching this on replay, you can go and watch this. You can go be involved, be engaged. Students, hello, because the high school have a student that serves. You can also go and lift up your voice to say, this is what I want for me and my peers. Like, we have to start empowering each other, because it looked like the establishment is not going to do it. So we have to empower each other, our kids, our community members, so that they can be a part of these decisions. Because for so long, people been meeting. You can go do an open record request and see that there are meetings on top of meetings that date back years. Decisions was made even in COVID. And you see the numbers. You heard us talk about the numbers earlier. You hear us talking about roles and engagement. If you are a sitting board member, and like this parent just said, you don't have a timeline, or you can't tell me when this tool is going to be ready for the community or your employee, that's a problem, y'all. Like, we really got to just sit back and think about that. Is a serious issue, and we really got to address this, because if not, once again, you heard the story, we're going to graduate more kids, and they're going to leave out, and they're not going to have at least half of the tools. I'll say that. They won't have at least half of the tools that they need to be successful in life. Can you imagine? We ain't gonna talk about reading no more, because we know, right? What if a child had to sign a lease? Some of these babies don't even know how to write well, let alone write in cursive. I'm gonna land right there. I see your hand. Go ahead, Dion.
I wanted to jump back on the point where we were talking about the election and how important that will be in selecting the superintendent. And just back to what I've learned in the last 3 years, I think a lot of promises are being made by certain candidates that are not seated on the board yet, that it's just not in their purview to do some of the things that they are saying they can do and promising. So, at the end of the day, you need 5 votes, 5 out of 9 to approve anything, right? And many of those decisions are brought forward from the superintendent that are on the consent agenda. Whether you're going to vote something down or vote something for it, those decisions are brought in from the superintendent. Now, we do know that the board has one-on-ones with the superintendent, so those relationships are really important. Every month, they have one-on-one meetings and can discuss things that are important both to their community and across the district, and should. But again, that's why I think it's really important that people meet and talk to all 9 Board of Education members, because as you said, they are all responsible for all children in the district. And so it is really important for us as community members to establish relationships with all Board of Education members, because you need 5 votes at the end of the day. So during the superintendent search, reach out to as many board members as you can and chat with them, because your voice is valuable, as both you ladies said.
And I agree with Dion, but I want to go just a step further. The Atlanta public school system has graduated a number of leaders. So we have the ability to yield great results when we're intentional and when we care. You've got to care about all of them. We've had, many politicians who graduated from the Atlanta public school system. You had Dr. Martin Luther King, you had Lena Horne, we've had Johnny Isaacson, we've had Gladys Knight, and that's in the entertainment industry. You also had people such as this one's when I looked at Cynthia McKinney. You had David Rucker. You had, I'm just naming these because I want you to see what we can produce if we're intentional. You had Dean Rusk, who's the former U.S. Secretary long ago, but it's we've had a history, even dating back to 1961. So we're not just talking about now, we're talking about forever. We had Caesar Mitchell, who was Atlanta City Council Mitchell, remember? So we've had people to come through the public school system and who've gone on into politics or who've gone on to be successful people in the world. I am calling on those people, the ones who are yet here and who've involved others, to get involved and support the communities. You're sitting on the board and on city council. You're sitting on the board of Fulton County Commissioner. You're sitting on Georgia Department of Education. And so I'm asking you to stand by and support the children that you wish to see graduate who with literacy and who's ready and prepared for life and career.
I absolutely agree. We have graduated some of the most brilliant minds here. Our current mayor graduated from where? Mays. The last one, Douglas. Like a lot of people you name went to the Booker T. Washington High School.
Maynard Jackson.
Right.
Booker T. David
We listen, we even have some of the people who work downtown right now went to these high schools. So we know that we can produce great leaders.
Right.
For some reason, it's just not happening. And I think the community is at a very important point in life where we all are like, no more. We don't see enough babies go to jail, be killed, be hurt and harmed. We want the best for all of them, no matter what you name them and label them as. We want the best for them, period. Even if you're going through something, that's absolutely fine. Now, APS is in the business of education, as it should be, but they have a lot of partners and they have a lot of resources that if you are experiencing any type of challenges, hey, you can go here and get this support. Those are what those partnerships are for. They're not just for the really nice pictures. They can help you if it's needed. But we have to have leaders that is willing to make sure all of these resources are available to all of our students. It has to be. And so I just want to get ready to close out with what has been said over and over. We have an election coming up. We have the opportunity to re-elect or elect people who can make decisions for this school system. This school board have an opportunity. We are no longer shucking and jiving. That's over. We mean business. When it comes to these children, people say all. You're going to hear all on this campaign trail. But we, the people, mean business when it comes to educating these children in Atlanta. And so with that being said, early voting starts next week. If you have an opportunity, please go and check your voter registration cards and make sure you know your right voting, your voting place, because I even just learned that some places have changed. You see how people do, and they ain't even had the the common courtesy to let us know where that is. That's so harmful, because if you show up at this place and you're supposed to be here, that can discourage you. You know, it costs to go drive your car or pay to go and, you know, vote. Like, it don't cost you to vote, but it take gas, or you gotta ride share, you gotta get on MARTA, you know, so you want to make sure you have the accurate information. And what I will do, once I post this, I'll make sure I get the city website that has all the information, and I'll post it up on this video and the last one, so people are aware, because that's super duper important, you know, to know where you need to go. And then also go back and educate
What,
your,
Keisha,
yeah,
can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Even the joint committee that they've recently established, the last approximately 12 months, they just
Okay.
recently met. And a couple city council women and men sit on there, as well as a Fulton County commissioner. Alex even asked the Board of Education to put out some information. I know many of us have asked the Board of Education administration to put out information about this election, and they will not do that. And the question is why? And many of us who are knowledgeable or who are looking for the information have been having to dig for those maps and look for the information you just found. It should not. The question is why is this not readily available?
Yeah.
That should be the question. Early election, as you said, starts on Monday. That's in 2 days. Even a councilman asked for the Board of Education administration staff to put something out, and it still hasn't. The chair of the Board of Education is over that staff. Why has that not been put out? And I know I've asked board members that, and they said they have relayed that information. So would appreciate your ladies' support on trying to get that out from the APS Board of Education and sending that information out as well.
So I thank you for lifting it up, Dion. So with that, okay, that's the article in the chat. I will most definitely make sure I attach updated information, because I have seen that some polling places in different areas have changed. And so I will go get that information, and I'll make sure that it's on this post, and I'll go put it on the last one as well, because to your point, I was listening to that meeting and I did hear people ask that some things be lifted up, and unfortunately, as y'all see, it hasn't been done yet. But guess what? That's okay. You don't want to do it, we'll do it for you. Now, we don't have to, but we will do it for you, because we want our community members to be educated and be encouraged to go vote. We already know that it's possibly going to be a low turnout, but that's okay, because we can talk to each other and get each other to go and get this information, push this information out, and make sure people, as they educate themselves, they know who they're voting for and where to go. So I'm going to land there for me. Ms. Sherelle, any final words?
Well, I just want to encourage everybody to not be discouraged, and just understand that the times have changed, and whereas you could, we had the support of communities and families like grandparents, aunties, things have kind of changed. And so the model that did work is the community supported everybody in the community. And so I see us as a community. And so I'm imploring everybody to just wrap your arms around everybody, and understand that what we produce, well, I should say what we expect is what we will get. But what you have to be intentional about what you expect in order for you to get intentional results. If you want the results you're looking for, my suggestion, I think Dion mentioned it, it is important that to understand and remember that when people are running, they'll tell you a lot of things. But look at the position of what a board is supposed to do. If what they're saying to you is lining up with what a board can do, then and they represent your voice, then they're going to be pretty good for the outcome of what you're looking for. If they're saying something that's contrary, don't vote them in, because they're going to pick a superintendent that everybody else has picked, and that may not be good for you. And we're in the business, again, about supporting each other so we can educate our children. So I am saying to you that I appreciate your attention. I appreciate, your willingness to just listen, to just have the conversation. Even if you don't know about all the issues that we're talking about, the most important one is that the board works for the people. Your tax dollars pay for education. The board elects the superintendent. They hire the superintendent. And yes, we have a firm that has done the search, but when they bring back people that is not good for the Atlanta Public School system, then that search needs to be had again. So go out and vote. You don't have but a couple of days, but I think early voting is going to start Monday. So go out and find the people you want, and don't be afraid. If you don't say anything, you said a lot by not saying anything. Silence is consent. Okay? So go out and vote. Love you, wish you well, and look to see you on the trail.
Absolutely. And I will say this, and I'm done. I will go and find a one pager, because if I'm not mistaken, I think it's on the city website, but I will find that one pager and I would post it or possibly tag it. So I need to go get the correct voting precinct information. I attach it to this post, and I'm going to find a one pager that let you know if you're not sure, because I know that a lot of people are not sure the role. First of all, the board works for us. The Board of Education works for us, and then they hire and fire the superintendent, who will work for the whole school district. And so I would task myself with that today. I will go look for that and I will post it. And with that being said, we are done. I wish you all well, be safe, and do not forget to go vote on Monday. Thank you.